Tight, so we need to keep the 3-minute limit in mind. Thank you.
I will certainly endeavor to do so. Chairman Oslanger, good morning. My name is Mark Scher. I'm the Vice President of the Worthington City Schools Board of Education, and I'd like to take the TPP discussion in a slightly different direction by posing a hypothetical. In 2006, 25% of my district's property tax base was in TPP, a total of around $20 million from a total budget of $110 million. So this worked out to about 18%. The hypothetical that I'd like to pose today is this. If President Obama decided to close the federal budget gap by making illegal the state sales tax with a national sales tax, and all of a sudden you were faced with the loss of, say, 18% of your budget, what would you do? Even if you were given an appropriate phase-out period, say 5 years, what would you do? That sounds crazy, right, my hypothetical? But that's exactly what the Ohio legislature did to Worthington and similarly situated districts in 2006 when it converted a local tax revenue source into a state tax source, essentially telling affected districts that it had 5 years to make the necessary adjustments. 18% of your revenue for the biennium is around $13 billion, which is obviously far higher than the hole that Governor Kasich had to dig his way out of when he assumed office in 2011, and you all remember how painful that was. So again, my hypothetical, and I really want you to think about this. What would you do? Now, I know what you're thinking, right? Just cut the budget. Unfortunately, it is a truism in Ohio that local school boards have limited ability to manage their overall budgets. Most of the budget goes to employee compensation. Most of that goes to teachers. In any strong collective bargaining state, such as Ohio, teacher compensation is controlled by a salary schedule. The details of that schedule were, in many cases, set years or decades ago and cannot be changed without the consent of the teachers. This means that step increases and increases for educational attainment, in addition to increased health care costs, are, for the most part, on autopilot. Those aren't my rules. Those are the rules in current state law. And given this dynamic, when current school funding fails to keep up with the rate of increase endemic in a salary schedule that's not completely under the district's control, the only variable that can be controlled is the number of FTEs and therefore services that can be provided. My hypothetical again, if it happened to you, what would you do? How would the state handle it? I suspect what Ohio would do is lobby Congress pretty hard. So I'm running out of time. I'll conclude the oral part of my testimony because you have it in front of you. I did want to leave you with a few other thoughts as to how to address some items that no one ever seems to want to talk about. The expense component of public education, we haven't talked about that at all. The importance of consistency in the funding formula, and what for me personally is the most important line item in the entire budget, education deregulation. I talked really fast. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for talking so fast. Senator Gardner has a question, then after we will recess, then after Senator Gardner.
Mr. Chairman, I really do appreciate it. These are, our schools are very important in Ohio, and our policies are important as well. I do want to ask you this question because it struck me that you went through on collective bargaining law and the inability for school boards to wrestle with salary schedules. And I note that your district, in full transparency, your district is one who appears to be getting a 0% increase in each year. Actually, maybe about $1,635 in the second year, but I'm not even going to count that. Okay. But the bottom line is, I do believe there's capacity for local schools, even with our current laws, to change salary schedules, to change steps, to do other things with contracts. And in fact, my home district has done that and was on the ballot a couple years ago thinking they needed funds. The last state budget, we increased funding significantly. They changed their contracts, and they're now not going to be on the ballot for years and years, in part because they had agreements with their local teachers. Have you attempted to restructure your local salary schedules and terms of contracts and been unsuccessful?
Senator Gardner, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for that question. Local school districts play by a set of rules that are governed by the state. Absent a change to the rule book, it's very difficult to do the kind of negotiation that you spoke of. There have been 2 changes to the rule book in the last 4 years that have allowed Worthington schools, and I suspect many other schools, to make adjustments that would have otherwise not been possible. The first change to the rule book occurred in 2011 when, and this is probably taboo to say in this room, but when this legislature passed Senate Bill 5. The passage of Senate Bill 5, even though it did not become law, did cause many unions to come to the table, negotiate with their districts, and essentially give sweetheart deals. Prior to Senate Bill 5 in 2011, I know of one case in the entire history of Ohio where step increases were on the table. I think that was in Martins Ferry, if I'm not mistaken. In 2011, many school districts, including ours, came with step freezes, with base salary increases. But again, that was because of the exogenous effects of you, the state legislature, changing the rule book. The other time you changed the rule book is in 2013, 2015 with Ohio pension reform, which caused a lot of older, more expensive teachers to retire. So the answer to your question, Senator, and it's an excellent question, is yes, we have tried. We were successful in 2011. My understanding from the Ohio School Boards Association and other sources is that in 2015, those efforts will not likely be successful.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, sir.
What time do we have right now?
12:25.
12:25. How about we'll recess to 1:10? Stand in recess to 1:10 so we get some lunch. Thank you very much. We stand in recess.